your hopes and dreams and all the possibilities. It ain't rocket surgery, but maybe it is. Come on down, we're gonna sit around. We're gonna get into your business. Get into your business. Get into your business.
Welcome to the Small Business Miracles Podcast. I'm Jeff Randolph. This Small Business Podcast is brought to you by EAG Advertising and Marketing. We're going to talk about marketing, and we're also here to celebrate entrepreneurs. We have marketing news and advice that business owners can use to keep moving forward. And today, we're talking to Lindsey Rood-Clifford, the president and CEO of Starlight Theatre. But first, we've got another small business marketing tip to talk about.
Get into your business.
In today's marketing tip, sometimes you just need to ask. And that's a tip about marketing research. When we look at our analytics or our ad performance or social media engagement or purchase history and why people buy one time and then not again, we look at those things and we know what happened. It's descriptive. I had this much traffic to my site. They stayed this long. People purchased X number of widgets. We get an average of X engagement on our social media posts. That's what happened. But to get to the question of why, we need to ask. Yeah, some of us are really good at extrapolating from incomplete information and looking at a stack of numbers and saying, aha, here's what I think is happening. And you might be right, or you might not. But that's why you have to ask. Just ask. We turn to marketing research for that. And when you ask, you get an answer that you can do something about. You can fix the product. You can update the website. You can tweak the ad to perform better. There's no substitute for marketing research. When's the last time you just asked?
Get into your business.
All right, we're here in our featured interview session of the podcast, and I'm with Lindsey Rood-Clifford. She's the president and CEO of Starlight Theatre. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to see you again. We see each other every once in a while. We worked together way back in the day on some event kind of projects. So, yeah, welcome. It's exciting to see where you've gone. Let's talk Starlight. Starlight is the oldest and largest continually operating performing arts venue in Kansas City. But that definition, we know, just barely scratches the surface of what you do. Can you give us a rundown of everything that goes on at Starlight? It's concerts, community programs. Like, what do you got?
Well, I think to talk about what Starlight is today, you do have to talk a little bit about what it was. Because when you talk about oldest and longest operating arts organization in this city, it really started with musical theater as the roots. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people that still live here in Kansas City that still come out to Starlight that have been coming for decades and decades, that there it is Broadway musical theater or bust. And even those folks sometimes don't know all the things that Starlight's doing now, or that half the people that come out to visit us come out to see live music now. It's not just musical theater. And then I would say, to your very good point to bring up, there's also a lot of community work. So there's some people that also don't know that Starlight's even a nonprofit. It is a city-owned venue, but it's been operated by a nonprofit since inception, which means there are programs like a free community tickets program that has been going on since the very first shows. Wow. So we give away 364 tickets to every single show that we do, our musical theater shows. So that's tens of thousands of tickets every year, which is probably millions of tickets over 75 years of history. So that community roots has certainly been there since the beginning, but I would say that's the part that's probably grown the most in the last couple of decades.
Oh, really?
And certainly I would say is one of my priorities as well is how we can really embody what it is to be a civic asset. So leaning into those programs that create access to the arts, leaning into those programs that help people see what community building in the arts can be, being out with school partners, being out with young people, being out with people that don't have the tradition of coming out to see live theater and music.
Right, and I'm gonna pivot to camps because as that community resource, I didn't know you gave away so many tickets a year, but I knew you did all kinds of camps. My daughter was in camps. She was a big fan of, well, obviously there's Blue Star. We can talk Blue Star. It's a favorite every time. But also, like she was in one of the camps, like Act Like an Animal camp.
Did she do Act Like an Animal camp where you spend half a day at Starlight, half a day at the zoo?
She did. It was perfect for her because she is now starting vet school next year. So she is in
so
the
formative.
It worked. Act Like an Animal Camp worked. So not only was she the Blue Star kind of thing, but also, camp participant and now vet. So all kinds of crazy, wonderful crossovers there.
So I think what you just touched on is one of the most important parts, which is all of those formative memories. People talk a lot about Starlight. They talk about the Starlight tradition, which for most people is coming out to see shows. But there's this whole contingent of people like your daughter. My son did Act Like an Animal, like kids that go to the High School Musical Theater Awards, that is the Blue Star Awards. When you talk about even this year, there's 66 participating schools in that program.
That's crazy.
So there's 5,000 kids who maybe some of them have never been out to see a show at Starlight. So the first experience they will have is coming out to be a part of the Blue Star Awards in May. So those are lots of different paths and avenues to get connected to this very historic theater and what it does.
It's outstanding. Blue Star. Just if you dive in just a little bit, because I know that's one of your favorites. This is a big program for you.
Well, as what I often refer to myself as a recovering theater kid.
Sure.
So as someone who did theater growing up, and for whom I was at the end of high school when we launched that program, which is now more than 2 decades old. But the Blue Star Awards is a program for high school musical theater. So any high schools that put on a musical each year, we send out 3 adjudicators to that show. So I just mentioned 66 schools this year.
That's
so
a lot
3 adjudicators to 66 shows.
Crazy.
And then all of those adjudicators give commentary that goes back to the schools. That's really the educational component. So there are working professional artists, educators. So those schools are not only getting what their theater educator may be giving them, but they're getting other commentary to help improve their skills that they take forward into their musicals for the next year. But then it rolls up into a big nominating process, really what is like the Tony Awards for Kansas City. But this year, as I said, 66 participating schools, 58 of them had nominations. And we go out, so by we, I mean the staff, our board, our program sponsors, our community volunteers on the same day, so April 24th, just last week. We went out to all 58 schools that day to deliver nomination banners. And the roots of that was really to take banners out, just like you see in high school gymnasiums for athletics, to say, how can we recognize the achievements and the hard work of theater kids? Because oftentimes we don't think about what hard work goes into putting on theater and music at the high school level. And it is just as hard work as athletics, and we thought it deserves the kind of recognition.
100%. Absolutely. And a great way to do it. And I think it's really gotten the kind of reputation in the community for sure that it deserves. It is a spectacular program. You mentioned business and hard work. We talk about business and hard work here on this podcast quite a bit. You've been around for 75 years, and you're working on the first capital campaign for more than 20 years. And you haven't done a capital campaign in a while. We
haven't done a capital campaign in a long time, and we've never done one of this size.
Yep.
So just a
$40
few
million?
little easy things to do. Yeah, a
just
$40 million campaign.
Let's do this while we're doing everything else. No, which hat are you wearing today? It's $40 million campaign. Tell us about the campaign. Tell us what it's going to bring.
So it's a comprehensive campaign. So it's not just about building projects. So there is one major project that we're in the middle of right now, which will really change the face of the theater. So 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago, is when we enclosed the stage house. So some people have the memories of the original open air theater that Starlight was. We enclosed the stage house in 2000, and then the last major renovations wrapped up in 2006. So now we are actually, this off season for us, we built 2 new sort of those iconic towers that are up near the stage.
Right.
We have 2 new towers that will support a new production and lighting bridge, and then also a canopy structure, this giant state-of-the-art steel canopy structure that will cover almost 3,200 of our nearly 8,000 seats. So almost half of our seats will be covered moving forward. For us, that means a couple things. One, it allows us to expand to daytime programming. So when we do theater, we can do matinees, which is the number one thing we get asked about in the theater space when we do shows like Frozen or The Little Mermaid, is how can I bring my little kids not to an 8 o'clock p.m. start time for a show?
8 o'clock start time is past my bedtime. How do I make sure that we can see the good stuff?
So especially for families, that'll be great. We also know for seniors who may not want to drive after dark after a certain point, that'll be great. We love, going back to Act Like an Animal Camp, we love that there's a potential partnership with the zoo to be able to say, spend the morning at the zoo, come over, see a show at Starlight, and drive more positive activity to the park. So that's the biggest project, and I can't quite under or overstate how big that canopy structure will be, and how much it will change the way that Starlight looks after the summer of 2026 forward. It also included, though, some new community programs. So I mentioned that's been a priority of ours. We really looked at what we were doing now, things like Blue Star, things like middle school scholarship programs, things like community tickets, and we said, where are we not? And where can we really leverage what Starlight is in sort of not only the arts and culture ecosystem, but within Kansas City to make a difference, so to do things that are unique. So you mentioned camps, and we said, well, there's a lot of camps in the city, so that's probably not the space we want to be in. And then what were sort of the ages that we were missing, really reaching out to for, again, those formative first memories. So we have 4 brand new programs that are coming online.
Exciting.
2 of them were focused on the elementary school aged group, because that's where we really had a gap. One was a new performance series for young audiences that we just finished up the 2nd year of doing that. So that's really, we're doing that in our indoor space at Starlight. So Starlight has one of the largest stage houses in the country at 12,000 square feet. And so we have a almost 500 seat indoor theater that we can leverage. Yes. And so we've started doing sort of theater for young audiences in that space, which allows us to do field trips with schools for the first time, because we can't do that in the summer. So that's been a really great thing for us. Brought out nearly 3,000 elementary schoolers this year through field trips, and then it had a couple of public shows with just $15 tickets. And then the other elementary school program, and I guess I can share it here because it'll be public very soon, is a new program called Disney Musicals in Schools.
Oh, wow.
So it's in partnership with Disney. It's in 22 other cities across the U.S. and the U.K. They have not added a new city since before the pandemic.
Wow, okay.
So Kansas City will be one of just 2 cities that will be onboarding this new program, and it's an in-school program. So it's a 17-week free program for schools to produce their first musical at the elementary school level. So it's a sustainable arts program. So it'll be a really neat new program, not just for Starlight, but for Kansas City and for young people to have that first, again, formative experience at their home school site as well.
Nice win. Yeah. That's a big deal.
That's going to be a big deal. So those are kind of the 2 big programs. We also have a new workforce development program in technical theater.
Oh, okay.
So we have a long-running arts administration internship program. I'm actually a product of that. So I started as a summer intern at Starlight.
That's right. Your career path really took off from there, and you're back again, but you really didn't go away for very long. So I
didn't. I like to say we have a CEO producing internship program.
That's right. And just as much. Just as much.
So this is it'll be a new program in the tech theater space. So again, lots of places that people can learn to sing, dance, and act. We really looked at where is there a gap in the ecosystem, and there was in tech theater, especially on the other side of the pandemic. Where can we support the other arts organizations in town? This was an area they said, yes, please, we need a pipeline. And for us, it allowed us to then partner with other arts organizations and do a career exploration program for high school juniors and seniors. So that's been a really, really great new program that launched this year that's been part of this campaign. And then the last one is it's a simple program we call Arts Bridge, which is really leaning into how we leverage Starlight as a physical space for community building. So when we're not doing all the other things that we do, how do we partner with not just other arts organizations, but other community nonprofits to really have Starlight embody that civic asset identity? So whether that's hosting events, doing pre-show activations with groups that maybe otherwise wouldn't come out to Starlight. It's big and small. We've hosted big community movie nights as an example of that with like Community Builders Kansas City. And it's also small. We hosted Heartland Arts KC, which is a small 12-week fellowship of local artists that are learning how to combine art and public policy. So really scalable, but a very cool way to make sure that the space is activated year-round.
Well, it's good to see that you're making the most out of this campaign. That seems like, a good thing to do. So still raising funds for this, right? People can still hand you money. Is that the moral of the story?
Always hand us money.
Got it.
But we are still raising money. We have raised almost $25 million. We do have some major gifts that are out there, but we're going to be really hitting the ground running this summer at Starlight. So if you're out, you'll probably hear us talking a lot about this and asking you to help support. But we do think it's a community organization, so it's a great opportunity to have the community come together to support it as well.
And you really should help support. This is not a paid endorsement of any kind. I'm just saying that where else are you going to watch The Lion King and then actually hear a lion roar?
That's right.
Next door. That is
There's no
those
space
places
quite
don't
like
exist.
it.
This is very very unique.
And I think we take it for granted sometimes. I feel that way even as someone who grew up going there, that it takes sometimes people from New York or nationally touring artists to come in to do a show at Starlight, and they look at it with wide eyes and they're like, this is so special because there aren't many spaces like this.
Right.
There's no space that's doing kind of the combination of programming that we do. And I think sometimes in Kansas City, we like to focus on what's new, what's coming, what's bright, what's shiny, but to the detriment, or at least I hope not the overlook sometimes, of what these sort of historic assets are that are very cool that we have right in our backyard.
Well, it was a gift to the city back in the day. Like that was literally the thing.
It's Kansas City's 100th birthday present to itself. That's the history.
That is it. Say no more. It is outstanding. We talked to a lot of business leaders on the podcast, and I want to talk a little opportunity and challenges for Starlight. So first, let's start with the challenges. What are the big obstacles that you're trying to overcome?
Pretty simply, I think it's two things. One is just like everyone's navigating right now, everything is more expensive than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And so I think it's changed how we need to fund our work. We're very lucky that as an arts organization, and compared to other arts organizations, we've been really fortunate that we have been able to rely pretty heavily on ticket sales.
Yeah.
That is not the case for usually your
No,
ballets or your symphonies or
your general nonprofit
theaters.
A lot of times.
Right.
Yeah. So absolutely.
So we've been really fortunate in that regard. Now, that's created a challenge as expensive has sort of skyrocketed to where we also don't want our ticket prices to skyrocket because we have a mission that's based in accessibility and affordability. So we're having to expand again what philanthropy looks like, look for new ways to sort of create revenue for the organization to fund not just the shows on the stage, but all the community work that I mentioned as well. So that's one thing. And number two, I would just say, again, the world is different today than it was 6 years ago. And I think for any arts and entertainment organization, probably for any business on the other side of a pandemic, but particularly for businesses that were just literally the apple carts were upset, right? Upended. What came before, we almost can't pay attention to.
Right.
And so we're still trying to figure out in this new chapter, what do audiences want? How do we get people off their couches? How do we provide the value proposition for getting out and doing live shared experiences like theater and music?
Right.
People love live music, and that's kind of the success story. We're lucky that we have these kind of two sides of our business, because the live music side, as many people have probably seen, it boomeranged back after the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so there's something to that of what live music has been able to capture, and I think it's in how interactive it is and how much we're a part of it.
Yeah.
We're not a bystander to it. We're really involved in it. I think some of the more traditional art forms like musical theater, like ballets and symphonies and operas, where you're typically passive, right? Like you're receiving the art. I think we're having to look on that side of it and go, what do people want out of this now? How can we adapt to meet the needs of new audiences so that we can acquire new people and can say to the millennials and their kids and the upcoming grandkids, why should you come out? Why is this worth your time? So that we can help start building that tradition for them. I don't want musical theater and live theater to become like some art forms where we're kind of out there saying, you should go to this, but maybe you're coming and it's not what you fully love and enjoy, but we're kind of pushing it on people. I think there's a lot to love about musical theater, and I think we just got to get people out there. So that's kind of a challenge of just saying, how do we cut through all the noise and inspire people to want to come out and be together?
Yeah. And I think I wasn't paying attention to it myself until you mentioned it, but I think I've seen more live performances, live music in the last 5 years than I did in the decade before that. I for some reason that does make a whole lot of sense. We want to be together. We want to take in new shows. We want to hang out and experience things. So I see that.
So I think we just have to adapt on the other side. And I think we're a little slower to adapt sometimes on what was tradition or historical. So there's kind of it's an inflection point right now of us going, what does this need to be for the future? And are we listening to the community and to audiences and moving in their direction? Are we trying to stay true to what was because we believe that's best, even though we're being told something different?
And from a business standpoint, of course, you have all of this historical data that would be, hey, we should expect these ticket sales by this time, and here's the routine to make this happen, and you just have to discard all of that and start over. And just
time
be
is
nimble.
precious, and I think the way we value time is so different now. And I think that impacts us a lot, especially then when you add on the very unique layer for us of being an outdoor business.
Yeah.
So that last minute purchase pattern that most people have now, or that we don't like as much the idea of like season tickets because we don't know what we're doing 6 months from now.
Oh, yeah.
Or we don't know what we're going to do in the fall when school starts back up. So we don't want to make that commitment. So we wait. So then I think there's a higher burden to say, okay, how do we capture that attention? And then, heaven forbid that there's a hot temperature or a chance of rain, which it feels like in the Midwest, there's always
going to be a chance of rain, right?
And even though our statistic is a rain out once every 3 years.
That's
I
amazing.
like to share that.
That is amazing.
We worry about that, but we shouldn't worry about that. I'm also hopeful my canopy will help people feel a little more of psychological safety around
more
feelings of mitigation around
I was always curious how you were able to pick, how you're able to determine what will be the hottest day of the year based on which show I want to go see. You're able to pull that out way in advance before the weather could ever possibly say that.
Because we know that'll be the memory that you make.
Yeah.
People remember the most those shows they got poured on or the hottest day of the year. You may have come to 100 shows at Starlight, the ones you will remember because it's so visceral. Right?
It is.
Unlike being in a black box. So I always say, I think that's a Starlight memory right there. So I don't feel bad about that because that's the one you'll remember. Mm-hmm. And there's so many other places you'll go that you won't remember the day or where you were or anything else. But because the environment is so real at Starlight, 100%. You remember it.
Yeah, I have that memory of we're watching with my daughter, John Mulaney, at Starlight, sweating in a 3-piece suit on stage.
He was so hot.
He was very hot. And of course, I watched the HBO special afterward and go, oh, maybe he shortened that section so he didn't have to be on stage that long. Or, maybe that came about some other way. But I felt for him. I did feel for him.
Sometimes I wish when they advance those shows, they'd be like, remember, we're outdoors. Maybe we should pick a different outfit.
Yeah, wear a different costume. Shorts are fine. Don't be formal for our sake. Let's flip it, though. What are the biggest opportunities? Where do you go from? For sure, the Capital campaign addresses so many of them. But other opportunities that you're looking forward to?
I think the same challenges also present opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I think when what came before can be and needs to be so easily discarded, it really creates a wonderful opportunity for innovation and new ideas. Mm. So I think when we look around the table, both with my staff, and I have a very engaged board of directors, a large 35-person board of directors, but everyone's new ideas and everyone's sort of the idea generation that's around the table, that doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
So I think the ability to look at new opportunities and execute on them and kind of really get down to saying, like, are there really any sacred cows here?
Yeah.
And for a mission-based organization, we just keep going back to, look, the mission is connecting our community through live arts experiences. It doesn't say what kind of live arts experiences. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say we have to do it a certain way. It really just says this is about bringing people together around music and theater right now. So what can we do to accomplish that?
Yeah.
So I think that's an opportunity. And I think leaning into, as I said, what we can learn from successful live art in live music and sort of adapt that into the experience for theater and leverage what is special about Starlight, which is that venue.
Oh, yeah.
Most theaters, you're zipping in and out where you don't have time, in the same space for a food and beverage experience or a scavenger hunt or some of the things that we do at Starlight. We have all this space. So I think for us, an opportunity is leaning into what is the pre-show experience, what is the intermission experience, and I would even say, and we don't do this now, but what's a post-show experience? Why go somewhere else if you're having a great time and we want you to talk about the theater you just saw or the great show you just saw? Why wouldn't we want people to stay and have a cocktail or a mocktail and talk about it right there?
Right.
Those are the things that I think are some of the biggest opportunities.
Oh, outstanding. And I'm so glad that you're not, tied to, here is the thing we do all the time, and we just do the exact same thing over and over again. You reinvent yourself and add new product lines and new experiences all the time, and I think that's spectacular. It's when we work with a business, it's not unlikely that we would say, okay, let's map out all of the customer touch points that we have from the day they're browsing something online to the day they come in, all of the different pieces that are they getting something in the mail? Are they what are any number of touch points we have, and how can we make that experience even better? I think Disney does the same kind of thing.
We talk a lot about Disney.
Yeah, as well you should. No, I think you're delivering that same promise, and it'll be good to see Disney as a program coming up. That's great.
It'll be great to have. I mean, we're looking forward this summer. We have the Kansas City premiere of Frozen. And so we know Disney is just such, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, maybe it's because Starlight looks like a castle. But people really associate the Disney brand with the Starlight brand. And I think because it's multi-generational, it's feel good, it's joy-based. There's all these things that I think there's a lot of similarities. We talk a lot about Hallmark too for the same reasons here locally. Yeah. So I think it's also leaning into, and you said it, like, what is that promise? What is, when we say the Starlight tradition, and tradition sometimes has this connotation of being like nothing's changed or we're doing the same thing all the time. Right. But I often say like the Starlight tradition is actually evolution. Yeah. It's been to change, to update, to grow. And that's not true of all venues or theater organizations or historic places. But I think that gives you a lot of freedom, and it's pretty liberating to say, what can we do next? And if it's all about how we bring people together, then our obligation, the imperative is, what is going to inspire people to come together? Yeah,
you're not this popular for 75 years unless you do exactly that. So
I'd like to think so.
Are you ready to go into a lightning round? Should we ask some questions that are just totally random and you have no way to know what's going to go on? Yes. I personally have a lot of great memories at Starlight, just great. And some of those are when a player performance was happening. As you look at the time that you've spent there, whether you're running the joint or whether you're working there, doing an event way back in the day as an intern first coming in, what is your best Starlight memory?
My best, this is always a hard one. I was like, if he asks
you're
me about
picking
a
child, I know.
I'm going to be in trouble.
It could be any.
Here's what I'll say. I think the memory that I hold the most dear now, because of probably the role that I'm in now, is I remember going to, it was in the 80s, with my grandparents who had season tickets to a production of Annie.
Oh, sure.
And there's something about, I'm a redhead, watching a little redhead kid, played Annie a time or two in my life. That memory, and at the time, and you talk about tradition and change, the box office was up at the top of the hill. So if you've been to Starlight, it's built kind of in amphitheater style where you go down. And it used to be that the box office was up at the top of the hill. That's where you'd enter, and you'd go down into the seats. And there's something about walking up that way, and I just have this visual in my head, even more so than the show itself. Although there's something about, and probably it's a core memory, the hopefulness of Annie.
Oh, sure.
Just sticks with me. I mean, that's probably foundational to my personality at this point too. So there's something about those shows that get you and stick with you, and a theme that, also the neat thing is like my neighbor might have felt different, right? Like my grandparents might have felt different. But for me, the things that I walked away with were like that visual of coming to the theater, the show itself, the hopefulness of tomorrow, and maybe. So I think that's what I would say.
Have you approached Daddy Warbucks for a capital campaign gift? I don't know if that's a thing or not. Is it?
No, but it's a great idea.
It's a good idea. Let me prospect for you. Your office overlooks the stage, so you can like see mic checks and all kinds of things like that. Have you had that starstruck moment, that fangirl kind of moment where you're like, I can't believe that's so and so?
I don't know that I have. I would say I've worked with some celebrity appearances in the past where maybe I have. Well, I'll tell you, the only person I've ever been starstruck by is Julie Andrews.
Oh.
And we haven't had her in a show at Starlight, but I did a celebrity appearance with her. So it's in the same vein. That's the only person where I literally got heart palpitations about going up to have tea with her in a hotel room. Like, that was intimidating. But otherwise, I think working in this business, you really realize that celebrities, touring artists, people that are doing some very big, cool things, they're just people.
They're people. And yes, at the end of it, we know they're people. But, there are some people who tend to be larger than life sometimes. Well, I can get where Julie Andrews would be that way.
And the next thing I'll say about that is the artists I appreciate the most are the ones who come out and remember that this is a job and who they're working for, which is audiences.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And not all artists do. And I will tell you, I have a strong bias for the ones that come out and they know they're here to put on a show for an audience. There's some artists who think really that they're the gift.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I agree. So.
I think that's fair. You're in the spotlight. You're fundraising. You have a fundraising background too. You're meeting people. You're at events. Do you thrive on that kind of human interaction and being kind of on all the time, or do you get to that point where you're just like, I can't people anymore. No more peopling. I need to go be alone or with family or read or something.
So I've been into this job for 2 years, and 2 years ago I was said, no, there's no ceiling. I'm an extroverted extrovert. I love people. I will close down the party. I would stay to talk to someone till 3 a.m. if there was someone who would stay to talk to me. 2 years later, I would say, yeah, there's a ceiling.
There's a limit. The limit doesn't exist.
There is a ceiling. It's a pretty high ceiling. I love people. I love learning about people. I love what brings people out to the theater. All the walks of life, all their history, why they've brought their, littles, grandkids or kids out with them. I love that. And I think part of it is especially for Starlight, like it is joy work. That's what I tell my team a lot too, is like, this is the business of joy. And in this world that we live in now, I do not take for granted how special that is, that we are a part of something that's putting something good into the world and into the community.
Absolutely. Events. You've managed events. We've run events together sometimes. Just a couple. A little absolutely incredible Kid Day. Events can be insane. The unexpected happens all the time. I was once running an event in Las Vegas where Frank Abagnale from Catch Me If You Can, the actual guy, was speaking, and the fire alarm goes off at the Venetian, and the production guys. I'm putting my headphones back on because we're about to wrap it up. Put the headphones back on and go, somebody want to tell me what's going on here? And they're like, well, it's going to be okay unless the fire dividing wall starts dropping, because then we're going to have to move some people really fast out of those seats. And we went, oh, all right. But Frank Abagnale, no sweat whatsoever. He's seen and done everything in his life. He's super famous for that kind of thing. Have you had that kind of event? What is that crazy event moment for you where, oh man, this came off the rails and, the craziness happens?
It's a thunderstorm usually. I think in outdoor theater, it's a thunderstorm. The people component, oddly, is not usually the variable. Mother Nature, but I also say it has made me and the team I work with, like, it makes you the most flexible, and it also makes you understand you can only control what you can control. And Mother Nature is the ultimate thing that you cannot control. And so I think it gives us all a little zen in every other environment we're in. Everything else is a problem to solve and something that you're responding to, because you can control what you can control, and then there's things you can't control that you are simply reacting to. And Mother Nature is a great example of that. So anytime that we have those once in a blue moon shows where a thunderstorm, especially in the Midwest, sometimes pops out of nowhere, like the forecast where it was 0% chance of rain, and then suddenly, something pops up. You're like, okay, well, we couldn't have predicted that, so we're just going to mobilize and figure it out from here. So that's probably the biggest thing. Now, in the event world, the one that came to mind as you started to tell that story was I was actually doing an event with Marvin Hamlish at the Kaufman Performing Arts Center right after it opened. Okay. And the fire alarm went off.
There are these kind of things that just happen. Yeah.
It was a new building. We had to stop. It ended the whole thing. He was so cool. It was like a year or two before he passed. But I do think that people that are out on the road in that way, it builds this flexibility and this resilience and this, like, you just take it as it comes, which is a pretty great attitude to have. You run into people that idle high on making mountain out of molehills. Right. And I have a great appreciation for understanding what true problems are and what true hills are. And there's a lot of things that are just not that. And then every now and again, there's a thunderstorm or there's a fire alarm that ends an event. And even that, you're like, can't control it, responding to it, keep moving.
Man, that's a tremendously healthy approach to that whole thing. I would love to be able to get a cup of that for myself and try not to control things that I can't control. That would be a good growth for me, I think.
Well, I mentioned recovering theater kid, also recovering perfectionist. And I often say having my son at a relatively young age and getting into this business at the start drilled that right out of me, because this is not, you cannot be perfect as a parent and you cannot be perfect working in outdoor theater.
Truth. This last question, and I'll take it into this more business world of, we saw each other again recently at a peer-to-peer CEO networking group, and there are lots of those in town. What's the value of a good kind of peer-to-peer conversation, peer-to-peer networking group, peer-to-peer, exchange of ideas to you? What are you looking for from that experience?
Community and fresh perspective. So I think in your own business, number one, everyone's drinking the same Kool-Aid to some degree. You even get lost in the words, right? Because you know what all the words mean. And I find it so refreshing to be in a room with people, and even with, there's very few in those, for me, nonprofit executives.
Right.
So, but the issues are all the same, right? Like all the issues when you're leading an organization come back to, your financials and people and how you're solving problems. That's it. Plug in whatever your business is. So then that second part, that community piece of having people that have the same problems or have the same challenges, who are invested in your success. I think that made a big difference. It was some of the best advice I got before I actually got into this role. When I was on the succession plan for it, is someone said, you hear that old adage, it's lonely at the top. Avoid that. Get community, find your people, so that when you get up there and you start to have invariably problems to solve and things that you can't talk down the hill, with your staff about, that you've got people you can bounce what you're thinking off of. And that was the right thought, and such a gift that someone gave me to strongly encourage that.
Oh, that's great advice. Great advice. I'll take no more lightning round. No, and no more thunderstorms either. No, lightning round is done. We'll pass on that. You've survived it easily, I'd say. Tell people where they can find you if they need more information, if they want to go check out a camp, if they want to, more importantly, contribute to a campaign. Where do they go? What do they do?
So kcstarlight.com is the home for all things Starlight. So all of our events, information about how to give and support, information about the campaign. So kcstarlight.com, I say we're in the business of selling tickets. So also whatever you Google, make sure it's at kcstarlight.com and not some other random site if you're looking at tickets. Third parties are real. They have a business too. I'm not here to disparage them, but I am here to tell you it's much better experience for you and for us if you go to kcstarlight.com.
That's right.
To buy tickets to anything you come to. And me, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me, that's probably the best place to find me. I love connecting there too. Big fan of connecting in this community. As I said, extroverted extrovert. So very few people that I will turn down for a good coffee, especially if there's idea sharing or aligned priorities that we can talk about.
There's a high ceiling for too much peopling, so please do reach out.
Yes, that's right.
Good. Lindsey Rood-Clifford, President and CEO of Starlight Theatre. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Get it to your business.
And that is our show. Thanks so much to our good friend Lindsey Rood-Clifford from Starlight, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Miracles podcast. Remember to subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review, drop us a line on the website at eagadv.com if you have any thoughts. Until then, we'll be out here helping entrepreneurs with another Small Business Miracle.
Talk about strategies and all the capabilities, building all your hopes, dreams, and all the possibilities. It ain't rocket surgery, but maybe it is. Come on down, we're gonna sit around, we're gonna get into your business, get into